Jazz. Part 1A. The smile that hid the first. People always say betrayal comes without warning. They're wrong. It whispers first. It hides inside small moments that seem too unimportant to remember. Jazz. A missed phone call. A smile that feels just a little forced. A promise repeated one too many times. By the time the truth finally stands in front of you, you realize it had been following you for months. Jazz. I wish I had understood that sooner. If I had, maybe I wouldn't have spent 3 years believing a man who had already decided to rewrite our future without telling me. My name is Emily Carter, Jazz, and until last autumn, I believed I knew exactly where my life was going. I was 29 years old. I had a steady job as a graphic designer, Jazz. A small apartment filled with plants I somehow managed to keep alive, and a fiancé named Daniel, who made everyone believe he was the kindest man in the room. If you met him for 5 minutes, Jazz, you would probably have trusted him too. He remembered birthdays. He carried groceries for elderly neighbors, Jazz. He laughed at the right moments and knew exactly what to say when someone was having a difficult day. People admired him. My parents adored him, Jazz. Even my friends used to joke that I had somehow found one of the last good men left in the world. I believed them. Our wedding was only 4 months away. The invitations had already been printed, Jazz. My dress was hanging inside my closet. Every evening, Daniel and I would sit at our tiny kitchen table with coffee, talking about paint colors for the house we planned to buy after the wedding, Jazz. We talked about children, weekend trips, growing old together, looking back now, Jazz. Those conversations feel like scenes from a movie where the audience already knows the ending while the main character keeps smiling. Because there was one thing I didn't know, Jazz. Daniel had already started lying. The strange part was that the lies didn't begin with something dramatic. They began with tiny details. He started coming home a little later than usual, Jazz. There was more traffic today, he'd say. Or, my boss asked me to stay another hour. Sometimes he looked genuinely tired. Sometimes he even apologized before I had the chance to ask, Jazz. There was always an explanation, always a reason, and every reason sounded believable. After all, real life isn't perfect. People work late, meetings happen, phones run out of battery, Jazz. Those things happen every day. That's exactly why the truth hides so easily. One Friday evening, I surprised him with dinner at his office. I had spent almost 2 hours cooking his favorite pasta, Jazz. I imagined his smile when I walked through the door carrying the warm containers. Instead, the receptionist looked confused. Daniel? She asked. He left almost 3 hours ago. I smiled politely. Yes. Oh, maybe he forgot to tell me. She smiled back. I'm sure that's all it is. I told myself the same thing during the drive home. Maybe he stopped for groceries. Maybe he visited his brother, Jazz. Maybe his phone battery died. There were 100 innocent explanations. I chose every single one except the obvious. When he finally walked through our apartment door, he looked surprised to see me awake. I thought you'd already be sleeping. I wanted to eat dinner together. He smiled. I'm sorry. He kissed my forehead. The office kept me forever, Jazz. I looked into his eyes. For one brief second, I almost mentioned what the receptionist had told me. Instead, I stayed quiet. That was the first mistake. Not because I trusted him, Jazz, but because I trusted the future we had built together. People protect what they don't want to lose, even when protecting it means ignoring questions that deserve answers. Days turned into weeks, Jazz. Life continued. Wedding plans became more stressful. Flowers, music, guest lists, cake flavors. There was always something demanding our attention. Whenever I noticed another small inconsistency, Jazz, I convinced myself we were simply overwhelmed. Daniel still held my hand in public. He still kissed me goodbye every morning. He still told me he loved me before falling asleep. Jazz. If someone had asked me whether I was happy, I would have answered without hesitation. Yes, completely. But happiness built on unanswered questions is fragile. I didn't know it yet, Jazz. But someone else had already begun pulling at the threads holding my world together. Her name was Sophie. She worked in Daniel's office. At that point, I had never met her, Jazz. I didn't know what she looked like. I didn't even know she existed. Yet she was about to become the person who unknowingly changed everything. The first sign came on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, Jazz. My phone buzzed while I was finishing a client project. The message came from an unknown number. There was no greeting, no explanation, only one sentence. Before you marry Daniel, Jazz, make sure you know where he really spends his evenings. I stared at the screen. My heartbeat slowed instead of racing. Not because I believed the message, because I didn't want to. I read it again, Jazz. And again, finally I laughed quietly to myself. Someone was playing a cruel joke. Maybe it was spam, maybe a wrong number, maybe someone jealous. Without replying, I deleted the message, Jazz. Then I returned to work. At least, I tried to. For the rest of the afternoon, I found myself reading the same email 3 times before understanding a single sentence. That night, Jazz, Daniel noticed I was quieter than usual. You okay? I forced a smile. Just tired. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. We're almost there. After the wedding, life will finally slow down, Jazz. I nodded. His hand felt warm, comforting, safe. And for one more evening, I allowed myself to believe every word. I had no idea that somewhere else, Jazz. Another phone was lighting up with messages Daniel hoped I would never see. The first lie had already been told. The second one was waiting. And before long, the truth would stop whispering, Jazz. Part 1b. The cracks begin to show the next morning. I convinced myself to forget the anonymous message. People receive strange texts all the time. It didn't have a name, a photo, or any proof. Jazz. I wasn't about to let a single sentence destroy a relationship that had taken years to build. Still, something had changed. For the first time in our relationship, Jazz, I wasn't just listening to Daniel's words. I was watching them. Every pause, every smile, every answer that came a little too quickly. That evening, Jazz, he walked into the apartment carrying my favorite flowers. I figured you could use a surprise, he said with a grin. Normally, I would have hugged him without a second thought. Instead, Jazz, I caught myself wondering whether the flowers were a gift or a distraction. The thought made me feel guilty. I hated the person I was becoming. Trust doesn't disappear in a single moment, Jazz. It fades one unanswered question at a time. A few days later, we met my parents for dinner. Daniel was perfect, as always. He helped my father carry heavy boxes into the garage, Jazz. He complimented my mother's cooking. He laughed at old family stories as if he'd heard them for the first time. When we drove home, my mother sent me a message. You're lucky, Emily, Jazz. Don't ever let him go. I stared at those words for a long time. Lucky. That was the word everyone used. Maybe that was why I ignored the uneasy feeling growing inside me, Jazz. A week passed without another anonymous message. Life almost felt normal again. Then Saturday arrived. Daniel said he had to meet an important client. It won't take long, he told me while adjusting his tie. Maybe 2 hours on a Saturday. The client travels a lot. This is the only time he had. I smiled. Okay, be careful. He kissed my forehead and left, Jazz. About an hour later, I realized he'd forgotten an important folder on the kitchen counter. Without thinking, I grabbed my keys. His office wasn't far away. I imagined surprising him before his meeting, Jazz. When I reached the building, the parking lot was nearly empty. The receptionist recognized me immediately. Hi, Emily. I'm just dropping off something for Daniel. Her expression changed. Oh, he isn't here today. I forced a small laugh. Maybe he's already with the client. She hesitated. I don't think there were any meetings scheduled. For a moment, the entire lobby seemed strangely quiet. Gaz. I thanked her and walked back outside. I didn't call Daniel. I didn't accuse him. I simply sat in my car with the folder still resting on the passenger seat. Questions filled my mind, but answers refused to appear. An hour later, Daniel came home looking relaxed. Long meeting, he sighed. The client wouldn't stop talking. I looked at him. He smiled exactly the way he always had. Gaz. Confident, comfortable, completely unaware that I now knew he'd lied. Not about something small, about where he had spent his entire afternoon. That night, while he slept beside me, Gaz. I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The room was silent except for the steady rhythm of his breathing. I realized something that frightened me more than the lie itself. Gaz. I no longer knew which version of Daniel was real. The man sleeping beside me, or the man who had disappeared for hours and invented a meeting that never existed. Outside, Gaz. Rain tapped softly against the bedroom window. Inside, the first real crack appeared in the future we had planned together. And somewhere beyond my sight, Gaz. Someone was waiting for the moment I would finally start asking the right questions. The room was completely silent. Gaz. Every eye turned toward Daniel as the last file appeared on the large screen behind him. For the first time since I had met him, he had nothing to say. No smile, no clever excuse, no perfect answer. Gaz. The documents spoke for themselves. Months of hidden emails, promises. Months that told two completely different stories. One life he showed to everyone, Gaz, and another he had carefully hidden behind lies. He looked at me, hoping I would rescue him the way I always had. But this time I simply stood there, calm, confident, no anger, no shouting. Truth. You always believed, I said quietly, that I would never look beyond your words. His shoulders dropped. I can explain. I shook my head. You've had months to explain. Gaz. The room remained silent. One by one, people began leaving without saying a word. His business partners walked away. Friends who had defended him looked disappointed. Gaz. Even those who once believed every story he told could no longer ignore what was right in front of them. Daniel finally understood something he had never expected. The greatest loss wasn't his reputation, it was trust. Trust takes years to build, and only moments to lose. As I picked up my bag, he quietly called my name. Emily? I stopped but didn't turn around. I'm sorry. For a moment, Gaz. I closed my eyes. Months earlier, those words would have meant everything. Now they meant almost nothing, because an apology without honesty is only another promise waiting to be broken. I hope one day, Gaz, I said softly, you become the person you always pretended to be. Then I walked away, not because I hated him, but because I finally respected myself. Weeks passed. Life slowly became peaceful again. Gaz. I moved into a smaller apartment. I focused on my work. I reconnected with friends I had neglected, while trying to protect a relationship that was already falling apart. For the first time in years, Gaz. I stopped worrying about someone else's choices. I started building my own future. One afternoon, I received another message from an unknown number. It simply read, Gaz, you inspired me to leave a relationship built on lies. Thank you. I smiled, not because someone praised me, but because I realized my story had become someone else's courage. Looking back, Gaz, I no longer saw myself as the woman who had been betrayed. I saw the woman who refused to stay silent. Revenge was never about destroying another person's life, Gaz. It was about refusing to let their lies define mine. And that made all the difference. If this story teaches anything, it's this. Some people think they can hide the truth forever, Gaz. They believe a good image is stronger than honesty, but sooner or later, every lie reaches the same destination, the truth. And when that day comes, the loudest victory isn't watching someone else fall, Gaz. It's realizing you no longer need them to stand. He never expected my revenge to expose his biggest lie. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I simply waited until the truth was impossible to hide, Gaz. For months, Daniel had convinced everyone that he was the perfect partner. He smiled in public, made promises in private, and always found a new excuse whenever something didn't make sense, Gaz. Every lie was carefully planned, but every lie also left a small clue behind. Instead of confronting him, I started collecting the truth. Old messages, forgotten receipts, hidden emails, Gaz, and quiet conversations slowly revealed the life he had been hiding. Piece by piece, the picture became clear. The day finally arrived when all his closest friends, family, Gaz, and business partners gathered in one room. Daniel expected another celebration. Instead, he watched his biggest lie fall apart in front of everyone. No shouting, no drama, just undeniable truth, Gaz. The silence that followed was louder than any argument. For the first time, he realized that trust cannot be rebuilt with excuses, Gaz. The image he had spent years creating disappeared in a few unforgettable minutes. As I walked away, I didn't feel revenge. I felt freedom. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't making someone suffer, Gaz. It's exposing the truth, protecting your peace, and proving that honesty always outlasts even the biggest lie. The room stayed silent long after the truth was revealed, Gaz. No one rushed to defend Daniel anymore. The same people who had once admired him now looked at him with disappointment, realizing they had believed a story that was never real. He tried to speak, Gaz, but every excuse sounded weaker than the last. The evidence wasn't based on rumors or anger. It was based on facts. Every message, every promise, and every hidden decision had led to this moment, Gaz. He finally understood that the hardest thing to escape isn't another person. It's the truth. I looked at him one last time. Months earlier, I would have cried, begged for answers, or hoped he would change, Gaz. But the woman standing there was no longer the same person he had betrayed. His lies had changed me, but they had also made me stronger. You didn't lose me today, I said calmly, Gaz. You lost me the day you chose a lie over honesty. Those words seemed to hit harder than anything else. For the first time, he had no response. As I walked toward the exit, Gaz, I felt lighter with every step. I wasn't leaving with anger. I wasn't leaving with hate. I was leaving with peace. The weight I had carried for months was finally gone. Over the following weeks, Gaz, life slowly found a new rhythm. I focused on my career, spent more time with my family, and reconnected with friends who had supported me through everything. Instead of asking why the betrayal happened, Gaz, I started asking myself what kind of future I wanted to build. One afternoon, I packed away the last box of memories from our relationship. Old photographs, cards, and gifts no longer made me sad, Gaz. They reminded me of an important lesson. Love without honesty can never become a lasting future. Months later, I unexpectedly saw Daniel again. He looked different, Gaz. The confidence that once defined him had faded. He quietly apologized and admitted that he had spent too much time protecting his image instead of protecting the people who truly cared about him. Gaz, I listened without anger. I hope you've learned something, I replied. He nodded. I have, I just learned it too late. I wished him well and walked away without looking back. Gaz, there was nothing left to prove. The revenge had never been about humiliating him. It had been about refusing to let his lies control my life any longer. That day, Gaz, I realized the greatest victory isn't watching someone else fall. It's discovering your own strength after they expected you to break. If there's one lesson in my story, it's this, Gaz. People can hide the truth for a while, but they can never hide it forever. Lies may win a few moments, but honesty wins the future. And sometimes, Gaz, The most powerful revenge is simply living a happier life without the person who underestimated your courage.